morning. So with the new year, many of you vowed to do things better. But what does that really mean? Is it acting on your career dreams, more quality time with your kids, making more money? A lot of you said yes, yes, and yes. But the problem is, where do you start to make the changes that you want? Our first guest says you have to be prepared to take a chance. She went from a pharmacist to becoming a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. Richelle Peña and her husband, William, co-wrote the book, The Power Couple, which launches today. They reflect on the challenges, failures, sacrifices, and triumphs of their business journey, all while raising 3 kids. They're lessons we can all learn from, and so can the next generation. Richelle joins us with 3 powerful success lessons to teach your kids, all while taking part in everyday life. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the intro. And Happy New
You are
Year.
so welcome. Thank you for the information. I want to get to that in just a second, but first want to get to your background. You know, for a lot of us, we have dreams of what we'd like to do, but fear and the security of where we are already will stop us from doing that. You had a great career as a pharmacist. You had school loans, though. You just had your first baby. Your husband was a dentist. That was enough to stop many people in just the dream state. What made you decide to launch?
You know, a bigger purpose. I love helping people, which is why I'm an entrepreneur, a pharmacist. And I don't know, I wanted to do something that was bigger than myself. And when my husband gave me the opportunity to open a business with him with my corporate knowledge as a pharmacist, I took the leap of faith and said, let's do it.
And you did, right? Okay, so the interesting thing is a lot of times people think that if they're in a profession, because what you all did, of course, is, you know, opening a pediatric dental group, started American Pediatric Dental Group, is you think being a dentist is the same as owning a business. Not the same. Kind of like being a chef doesn't mean you can necessarily own a restaurant. Being a hairstylist doesn't necessarily mean you can own a hair salon. It's a different skill set. Those are things that you took into consideration. But one of the other things was the extra hours it would take, and also you worried about the impact on your marriage and family. What advice do you have there for those couples who decide to work together?
My biggest advice is you need to evaluate your relationship as a couple. How well do you communicate right now? How do you handle disagreements and arguments? I mean, in my book, we talk about the challenges of we were boyfriend and girlfriend in grad school. No idea we were going to work together, but we did know that we wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves, and we had the same vision and mission, and that is key to building a business, whether it be with your partner or your spouse like myself. We had the same vision of helping children that had special needs, that were underserved in our community, and doing God's work. And honestly, it paid off with our strong purpose and resilience.
Yeah, a lot of people look at the paid off part, how you became multimillionaires, but sometimes don't realize that it was almost like, no pun intended, yeah, pun intended, it was almost like pulling teeth at times. But that's where the lessons come out of. In 2021, you sold the business. You had gotten into several locations, 7 locations, 18 doctors, 130 team members. And so now your book, which comes out today, congratulations. And we reflect on the, as you said, the challenges, the failures, the sacrifices, the triumphs. I always say your toughest time teaches you your greatest lessons. And in particular for the next generation, you shared things with your kids. You let your kids see things and you teach them through example, which is how a lot of kids learn. And I love that you use car chats. That's when you have a captive audience. When you pick those kids up and they're in that car, they can go nowhere because you have the lock, the child lock on.
Exactly. I use it as my soapbox, where I can impart mini lessons, talk to them, not lecture them, talk to them like, hey, this is how my days was. I talk about my failures and my challenges, any setbacks that I had. And by sharing my own experience, I mean, think about it. You learn from other people's stories, and it's really molding them to have a growth mindset and say, you know what, if my mom can do it, so can I.
Yeah, and when you say mindset, if that mindset is instilled at such a young age, it becomes second nature when they're older, hopefully. So I'm going to go through some of the lessons that you have for kids to have success. One is complete what you start, and you can address that on whatever age level they're on.
Absolutely. You know, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to teach your kids to even finish a Lego set or an art project that they're doing. Just those little things will teach them a lifelong lesson for success. Afterwards, they'll feel a sense of accomplishment. You know, my kids, they ran their 5K when they were very young. And they wanted to give up midway and I push them and they push themselves. And at the end, they realize, oh my God, I can do it. That gives you confidence and grit not to give up. And, one thing I tell them is don't give up when it's hard. If they had a hard day at gymnastics, I want to quit. No, we're not going to quit when it's hard. Let's push through the pain, because at the other side of it, it's a lesson that they'll learn in life, that you'll be stronger, more resilient, and that's how you build successful kids with that grit.
Yeah, and Richelle, I was just comparing like my son to your kids. Your kids are running the 5K and they completed that. I just want my son, when the drawer comes out, we don't have soft closed drawers, push it back in. Push it back in.
Yes.
So he would complete what you start right there. All right. The other thing that so many people have a hard time grasping is that failure is a learning opportunity. So many famous entrepreneurs, especially, every inventor will tell you throughout time, we saw where they failed and failed and failed until they got to what it was they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you and I both know that life is full of ups and downs. And what I love to tell my kids is you either win or you learn. Failure is a part of that growth mindset. And studies actually show that 85% of children who have parents that have a growth mindset, they turn out to take challenges, learn from them, and actually grow as a person. So, I always ask my kids, well, what did you learn from it? If you didn't get a good grade in math on the test, what could we do better? Rather than the lecture of you should have done this, this teaches them that they need to be accountable for what they can do better.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You don't necessarily remember the things you got right, but you remember the things that you got wrong. In fact, a number of universities are looking at when they do a pass-fail grade, people were saying, well, that doesn't make sense. They said, well, here's the reason why. When you get into class, after you've taken your test, we have everybody sit down, take out your stuff, look at it, and discuss why you got something wrong. And that you will always remember.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a key to success when you're teaching your kids. That's like, explaining to them, look, what can you do better next time? And they could take this into their adulthood, even in relationships. When you're leading a team or you're an entrepreneur, you have to be able to communicate to your team what they did wrong and how we can make it better. And I think those make the best leaders, right?
Yeah.
Not the ones who, tell you, oh, you did this wrong, but how can we make it better? And in our book and on our journey in entrepreneurship, some of the biggest mistakes that were costly, they were the ones that taught us the biggest lessons, and we moved forward from them.
Yeah, another lesson you have, I think, is so important, especially in today's competitive culture, and that's be comfortable being a beginner. So many times people will go into, and I think we've passed this on to our kids, acting like, oh yeah, I already know, I've already done that, yeah, right. But when you begin, the very beginning part of the process sometimes can be the most powerful part of the process.
Yes, I wish I could look at you in the eye to say, do this for yourself, do this for your kids. It's important to be a lifelong learner, to be adaptable. I mean, technology is changing so often. And if you're afraid to be a beginner at something again, then that's going to hinder you from progressing. As an entrepreneur, when we opened our business, there was only Facebook, then Instagram came out. And if we wouldn't have learned Instagram and how to do marketing on there, we would have been left behind. Yeah. So for my kids and for everybody out there who's listening, it's okay to be a learner, to be a beginner again. I went from pharmacist to entrepreneur, and let me tell you, the most personal growth that I've seen is because I allowed myself to say, I don't know how to do this, but I will learn how to do it and leverage my resources to learn.
Yeah, and facing fear, because one of people's number one fear is public speaking. You had to master that.
Absolutely. I mean, public speaking, Instagram, this is all new to me, but you embrace it. And I think I have a powerful message to share. And when you do it once, it's scary, but afterwards you build confidence. And where you get confidence is by doing something over and over again. And eventually it's like riding a bike. In the beginning, your child is so scared. And afterwards they accomplish it and they become confident.
Yeah.
So many great things that can come out of going over fear and like your mindset.
A lot of people ask me, are you ever nervous doing the show? And I said, I'm only nervous when I'm not prepared. And so
Right,
there you go.
absolutely.
And then after that, it's like I still will just, you know, if you're not prepared, you get out there and just do the best you can. All right, Richelle, thank you very much for sharing the information with us today, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much for having me, especially on the launch of my book.
All right, have a great day. The Power Couple by
Thank
Richelle
you.
Peña is available now wherever books are sold.